Hi guys, in this series of videos we're going to be looking at how to play 10 songs with 3 new chords. We've got a G major, a C major and a D major. And this is how we're going to play some really cool songs with just these 3 chords. The D we've covered before in the previous set of videos, how to play 3 songs with E, A and D. So if you want to know how to play that D chord, check out the previous set of videos and we'll get you playing onto the record with those. But in this one we're going to be focused on a lot of songs which are in the key of G, which means that these songs are going to start on G, and also the other chords that we use with them, C and D, sort of fit in the family of G. When we start on a G chord, a C and a D sound really good when we play after it. So we're going to be covering how to play these, how to change between them, and a couple of different options you've got with these chords. So this is the normal standard way you will play a G major chord on any guitar. We have your middle finger on the thickest E string at the 3rd fret, which should be where you have a dot on the top of your guitar. Some don't, this one doesn't for example, but most standardized guitars do. That's where your middle finger goes. Your first finger goes on the 2nd fret of the A string. And then your 3rd finger is all the way down on the thinnest E string at 3rd fret again, so on that dotted fret. And if all those 3 are right on the tips of their fingers, some people have a habit of flattening off their 3rd finger when they go for this G chord, but I need you to make sure that they're on the tips of their fingers so that they all ring out great. And it should sound like that. So this is your standard G major chord from another angle. A couple of important points to note from this alternate angle is you want to make sure each finger is at this side of the fret and not at this side. So your first finger at 2nd fret wants to be right over here. Your middle finger at 3rd fret on the thickest E string wants to be right over this side of the fret and not over here. That way it might not ring out at this side and we don't have to press down as hard when we're at this side of the fret to get it to ring out. And they're nicely on their tips, so again we have this claw hand kind of idea happening. My fingers are kind of shaped like this as I'm pressing the finger down. And exactly the same for the 3rd finger, it's on its tip. And my little finger, rather than kind of being down here or kind of distracting or sometimes helping push down this one, it's just right at the side, right next to that 3rd finger, kind of gaining some strength from it. And that's your G major chord. So again, 1, 2, 3, little finger next to it. And that's your standard G major chord. So as I say, that's the standard way to play a G. There's another option that we can do with this G chord that will make a lot of your changes and a lot of these songs, one, a lot easier, but also actually sound more like the record as well. And that's by playing it with your little finger on as well, with your 4th finger. So from your standard G, we move your 3rd finger up a string, but at the same fret. And then we have your little finger, your pinky, on the thinnest E string where your 3rd finger was. So we've moved your 3rd finger up and replaced it with your little finger, and that sounds like this. Now to my ear, that actually sounds like a more pleasant and nicer sounding G. Compare it to the old way. I prefer the sound of this one. It's a tiny bit more work because you are using your little finger for the first time. However, this is going to make changing to the D major chord that we've already covered, as I say in a previous video. So if you're not, I'm not going to go into this D too much. But we make this little triangle shape with your first finger at 2nd fret on the 3rd string, so that's the G, and middle finger on the 2nd fret on the top E string, and then your 3rd finger creates a little triangle shape. And that's your D major chord. As I say, this gets used a lot with a G. And if we use this Noel Gallagher method, which is what I nickname it with your 2 little fingers here, this way of playing G, I'm going to nickname the Noel Gallagher of Oasis fame, G. We keep the 3rd finger down and we have an anchor finger, which was really important in the first batch of videos that I made. It really helps a change if you can keep one finger down all the time. In this case it's your third finger, which isn't the strongest of fingers when you're first starting off. Kind of your first finger's the stronger one, but it should help. Keep that third finger down and you can change to a D chord. In my opinion, much easier, and in my experience much easier for a lot of absolute beginners than going for the standard G and then having to lift all fingers off and trying to find your D chord from there. This gives you a point of contact and it makes that change a lot easier. So your alternative G major chord, this is your standard one. Third finger moves up one string and your little finger, which was right next to it a second ago, goes on the thinnest E string. So your little finger's on the thinnest string and your third finger is on the next string up, which is your second string. First and second finger are exactly the same. They're where they were before, and everything on its tips. If these two fingers, the temptation is going to be to hit them flat like this. If they're going flat like this, it's unlikely that these top two strings are going to really ring out at all. We need them on the tips of their fingers. Everything in this claw hand shape, kind of 90 degrees to the fretboard, and with your little finger and third finger as close together as they reasonably can be. And that's your Noel Gallagher style G major chord. Your third chord that you're going to need for this series of songs is a C chord, which the standard way of playing it is like this. Here we have your first finger on the second string, so that's the B string at first fret. That note sounds like that. We have your middle finger on the D string at second fret, and then your third finger, third fret, so the dotted fret one more time, on the A string. And this one it's good especially at this stage. If this is the first chord you've ever learnt, don't worry about this too much, but if you've played a few songs now with a few chords, strum that C chord from the fifth string. Don't play the thickest E string, it can sound a little C chord sounding like that, that's fine. If you notice on the diagram, there's a little cross on that string. Remember, these diagrams are kind of written upside down, but so the cross will be on the bottom here, but this is actually your bottom string because it's the lowest one. And we don't want to play this string on the C chord, otherwise it sounds like this, rather than sounding like this. Or on the D chord, where we want to strum from the D string rather than hitting the thickest string. That will make it sound a lot better, especially if you're on the tips of your fingers as well. If your fingers are quite flat like this, it might sound a little like that. Okay, so right on the tips of your fingers, kind of like a claw hand, the way I like to describe it, for want of a better term. That's your D chord, and then we had the C chord like this. For your C major chord, really making sure that each finger is right on the tip. Your first finger most definitely, otherwise this thinnest E string here will not ring out if it's kind of on the side or anything like this. So we need it right on the tip, again not at this bad side where that one won't ring out either. It needs to be at this side of the fret, and then that first finger will sound fine. Middle finger and third finger as well, both at this side of the fret. And that's how we get your C chord to sound great. It can be tricky. It's the first chord we've gone for with covering 3 frets. E or A only kind of cover these first 2, so everything might have been a bit of a squash before, and now we're really spread out. If you're really struggling, you can use a capo so that your frets get closer together, moving the C chord further up the fretboard, but there's no really other way of getting this chord to sound great other than doing it little and often and making sure that your C chord sounds great. Okay, we've got a couple of options with how to play this C chord as well as the standard way of doing it. This is going to be a very similar way to the option we had on the G, so the Noel Gallagher method as I like to describe it. When we play this C, that's a big change from both the G and the D. which the G to a D was quite a big change as well when you're first getting used to it. But what I would like to introduce to you is a way to play a C, which is a C add 9, which again sounds really great for a lot of these songs. This is actually the C that will be used in this song. This isn't a easy cheating beginner's C. This is a C that is used in songs because it sounds great. After you've done a few songs at this stage, I would like you to be able to change between a full normal G to a full normal C and the D. But to be able to do this in songs and get the sound of the record, this method is actually really used an awful lot, especially with these 3 chords in this sequence. So we have a G chord with the Noel Gallagher method. Play this with me now. So 3, 2, 1. This is your Noel Gallagher G. Then to play your C chord, we just move your first finger and your middle finger down 1 string. And don't play the thickest E string. And it sounds like this. This is your Noel Gallagher C chord. And it's not just used for Oasis songs, it's going to be used in lots of songs. For example, we're going to be able to play Free Falling with this chord change. And then to a D. And that third finger is going to stay down the whole time, which, as I say, is going to make this a whole lot easier for you. But I just want you to know exactly what chords we're playing here. Also, for another song that we're going to be going for, Sweet Home Alabama, this is the proper way to do those chords, even to do the riff. That's how the chords are made. It's not actually a full C. So really, really useful stuff. And so yes, just as a little bit more explanation as to why this is a C chord, because your fingers seem in totally different places, right, to where they were before. These 2 notes are actually the same, where your first and second finger are on a Noel Gallagher C chord, as to where they are on a normal C chord, but with your second and third fingers on them. They're the same 2 notes regardless. But this just keeps it in a really similar state to the G and the C. And then when we move to a D, we have a third finger anchor. So as I say, I'd really like you to use this method for the most of these songs, unless I tell you otherwise, because it really gets the sound of the record. But after these videos, after you sort of progress on, please be able to change between a normal G and a normal C and a normal D, because that's also fundamental to doing songs that don't begin on a G, that aren't in the key of G. And that's going to be everything that you'll need for this set of videos. We'll cover strumming patterns and everything like that. But fire away and choose the song that you want, and I'll see you there.